Good afternoon or evening, everybody, and welcome back to another weather forecast here by Aiden Weather Forecast. In this video, we're going to be doing a tropical update on Tropical Storm Peter and Rose, as well as an upcoming threat for maybe Tropical Storm, if not even Hurricane Sam, which is a part of the same African easterly wave that Rose is a part of. So you see an overall apparent long wave trough here, open trough, and that's going to be the tropical wave that will most likely help Sam form. But right now we have some new updates within Peter and Rose, which we'll be looking at as well. Going to be going into depth within Invest 98L, which is very well likely to become a tropical depression, and as well even a tropical storm in the future days. But before we get into the video, I recommend you guys subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button, and as well hit that big like button so I know you guys like videos like these, and as well so the algorithm can recommend this video towards people who are not already viewers of my channel, so they can go and spread the word on this. But without further ado, let's get in the video. So here's a look at the National Hurricane Center 5-day tropical weather outlook. And so there we have Tropical Storm Peter, which is just north of the U.S. Virgin Islands, currently bringing in some overall small effects, including gusty winds and as well as some overall minor flooding and urban flooding. It is still at 50 miles an hour and 1,007 millibars, so its pressure has not changed within the past 24 hours. And moving west-northwest within 14 miles an hour. So it's going to start going west-northwestward and then go out to sea, so not going to pose a threat towards the Bahamas, Cuba, or Florida. If you look at this without any content, you probably think this is going straight for the Bahamas and it could become a big threat, but this is not going to become a big threat thanks to that ridging in trough steering, keeping it away from anywhere close to the Bahamas, the United States. And there we have Tropical Storm Rose, which as well is going to be an out-to-sea storm, and this one is at 40 miles an hour. So this is actually, again, the first Rose ever. We have not had a Rose ever in the North Atlantic. In 2003, we were super duper close to getting Rose, but the list ended at Peter because the season wasn't. It just died at Peter, so the season stopped at Peter. And then in 2009, I think we stopped with I'm not sure exactly. I think 2009 stopped with Ida or something like that, and then in 2015 was a very dead season. So now 6 years later, we're in 2021, and we have now reached the furthest we have ever reached within this alphabet list. So that's a fun fact for you guys. Rose is sitting though at lower, or actually very similar pressure at 1,007 millibars and moving directly northwest at 16 miles an hour. As well, also a pretty interesting fact, now Odette, its remnant, is now an AOI, which is a 30%. So imagine if the Odette forms once again a tropical storm force, non-tropical low pressure system. The remnant of Odette is located a few hundred miles southeast of Newfoundland. This low could acquire some subtropical characteristics by the middle of this week as it moves slowly southeastward over warm water across the north central Atlantic. So imagine if this forms into another system. It'll be really funny. And then we have Invest 98L right here. There it is at a 30% for the next 48 hours and an 80% within the next 5 days. So really high confidence. Again, there's a pretty big area of potential formation, and this will could definitely become an interest for the Caribbean because obviously it's rather low. It's not gonna it's not having a high area of formation way up there like we saw with within Larry. Obviously this one's pretty rather south, so this is definitely become an interest. Obviously, if it becomes rather strong like models are showing it, then it'll most likely go out to sea like that. But if it's going to be rather weak, this could definitely become a small minor concern for the Caribbean and the Lesser Antilles. But as of now, nothing too crazy. So, of course, there's a tropical wave located 700 miles south. Cape Verde Islands are still showing some signs of organization, although there does not to be appear surface circulation at this time. Upper level winds, however, are expected to become conducive for further development by midweek, and a tropical depression is likely to form by Thursday or Friday while the system moves westward at 10 to 15 miles an hour across the eastern and central tropical Atlantic. So we're not going to be watching that for a good amount of year. Actually, the overall upper low wind should be very favorable for development. So here's a key message for Tropical Storm Peter. Still seeing some overall intense rainfall across the southern general vicinity there and areas near northern Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, and even as well the northern Leeward Islands, watching out for some urban and small stream flooding. let's now get into the overall discussion for this storm. We're just going to go straight to the overall peak forecast and the discussion for the future days on its wind strength. We're not going to really get into anything like that within the actual deep stuff, but so 50 miles an hour initially, likely to stay as 50 for the next 12 hours, and it's going to go through a gradually weakening trend as conditions become less favorable. So again, there's the 50 miles an hour, and it's going to gradually, slowly weaken, and then it goes actually back to 40. So there's a chance it could possibly re-strengthen once the upper level winds become a little bit more favorable. And actually, we saw it with the CMC. The CMC kind of had it weakening after getting close to the Bahamas, and then slowly regaining strength. And then here's a look at Rose. So obviously, we're not going to have a key message within Rose because it's not going to impact any land whatsoever. It's going to be a very, very short-lived storm. But here's the overall forecast. So right now it's at 40 miles an hour, likely to strengthen up to 45. And it's going to really slowly weaken. It's probably going to become a tropical depression within the next 48 hours. So it's going to be very, very minimal storm as we're seeing some intense dry air really just suffocating this small part of the tropical wave. Because the tropical wave, the main part of the tropical wave is within Invest 98L, but the initial tip in the very beginning of the tropical wave was the one that caused Rose. But as Rose is going northwest, where it's kind of branching off from that main tropical wave, so it really has little to no moisture, with the very intense high pressure bringing in some overall a stronger wave in the far southern part. We're missing some intense SAL picking up, and that's just absolutely just suffocate Rose. So here's the overall look at this tropical wave. So there we have a tropical storm Peter. There we have their tropical storm Rose, and there we have Invest 98L. So there you see, here's the tropical wave. There you see the overall ton of the moisture coming off from sub-Saharan Africa, and there you see obviously tropical storm Rose pretty far northwestward of this initial tropical wave right now. But you can see a lot of precipitated water going on there within 98L as well. Not looking too shabby within Rose, but really Peter isn't looking the best, but it's definitely a lot better looking than what it looked like a few hours ago. Low pressure starting to really kind of close off a good bit, and starting to get a lot more convection within the actual low pressure itself. But here are the three things we're watching out for in the North Atlantic right now. All should not be threats to land. If anything's going to impact land, though, we're going to have to watch out for this guy right here possibly being a threat towards Bermuda, and this guy probably being a little threat for the Caribbean, but definitely no threat within Rose except for the fish. They have to really watch out for that. But good things for the fish can't drown, because this would definitely be a pretty big rainmaker considering how slow it's going to be moving once it becomes post-tropical. But here's the overall look at the waves we're seeing here. Again, a big one right here off Africa. And there you see the moisture kind of really starting to get its act together to keep Rose hopes of living alive. Here's another look at the wave right now, looking at the overall simulated IR, and you're seeing decent amount of actual cold cloud tops within Rose getting negative 70 degrees Celsius, and as well starting to get some cooler cloud tops, especially as we go into the overnight hours. We're going to start seeing some colder and higher echo tops within 98L, so likely to get its act together and become a tropical depression very soon. So here's a look at tropical storm. This is a look at tropical storm Peter. And like I said earlier, when we're looking at the overall precipitated water, let's go back a little bit. You can see how it looked subtropical. I mean, it still had that really open low pressure with like really no convection. We had a decent amount of convection to the northeast quadrant, way better than yesterday. But now we're actually starting to see some actual convection bursts actually covering this low pressure on satellite. So there's a low pressure right here. It definitely looks overall pretty good. Obviously, it's very, very lopsided still. If you split this low pressure in half, it's all on the eastern quadrant, and that's where we're seeing the overall best condition, the more conducive side. That's actually where we're seeing a lot of that moisture, because we are seeing a little bit of dry air becoming a threat here, and that's kind of preventing any initiation whatsoever on the eastern quadrant, just like we saw earlier with Odette. Odette was very lopsided originally because there was dry air kind of on the west side. But you can kind of tell with the really wavy clouds like that, there is some dry air posing a threat towards Peter. If there is enough strong inflow, it could definitely hurt the storm a good bit. But thankfully, the low pressure is obviously closed. has close circulation, so that's a good sign to it. That's the big reason for why the storm is still alive at the point. But it's not looking the best, and again, it's not going to have the best future. Likely to start kind of going to a weakening trend in the far future, but at a very slow rate. And then there is a little bit that malls are picking up on it, maybe re-strengthening once it's further up the Gulf Stream. So here's the overlook of the tropical storm Peter National Hurricane Center forecast. So there again, like I said, it's very, very lopsided. A lot of that tropical storm wind extends actually just to the northeast of this low pressure. It's got a very, very, very small wind field. So good, thankfully, luckily, Puerto Rico and the Leeward Islands and the U.S. Virgin Islands are not going to get really anything tropical storm wind related, but the big thing will be still the flooding. Likely again with the overall trough that's going to be steering as well the North Ridge to the axis is going to allow for these overall southerlies to pick it up and take it towards the northern portion. Obviously north of this overall track, and that's why it's not going to impact the Bahamas. If this ridge were way up here and a lot weaker, or there wasn't a strong trough, it'll likely actually become a threat towards the Bahamas, but definitely not the pattern we're looking at right now. And then you see a weaken to a tropical depression, and then becomes a storm once again. It is actually kind of directly heading for Bermuda, so you have to really watch out for Bermuda, because if this trough is, or if this ridge, per se, is kind of steering it kind of like that with the southerlies, it's definitely a possibility. It could definitely pose a threat for you guys, and not like a Larry scenario where you have that really strong negative tilted trough just absolutely hammering it, kind of keeping it away from hitting Bermuda, because Larry was like that. It was so close to hitting Bermuda, but with that trough to the west, sorry, it really spared Bermuda. But this is going to be a little bit different scenario, and we'll get into a little bit of that deeper into this shear once we look at 200 millibar shear and the upper level winds. I'll show you guys a little bit better why it's steering the way it is. It's a little hard to show you guys based off the National Hurricane Center map, so I'll show you guys later the reasoning for its steering. Here's a look at the GEPS tracks and minimal center pressure. So they have definitely backed off a lot more compared to yesterday, where there was a ton of them getting sub 980. There are still a few getting it sub 970 now in the far northwest Atlantic. But as of now, as well, tracks are a lot more in agreement, because some yesterday were taking it straight to Cuba and the Bahamas. There are still like maybe one or two, but there's still a lot more in agreement compared to yesterday, which is a good sign. But here's a look at Bermuda's. Basically, I don't even know where to see Bermuda. I think Bermuda's like right within the mean, actually, right under the mean. So again, Bermuda, you guys have to watch out. All those really won't be a strong system. Maybe a borderline tropical storm with the depression. It's still going to bring in some light conditions. So I just got to monitor this very closely. Here's the overall look at the tropical storm Peter model intensity guidance though, but look, as obviously it's going to start going to a weakening trend and likely become a tropical depression, and then it re-strengthens as it goes into a little bit more of a favorable condition within the upper level winds, and as well just as it goes into the northern Gulf Stream, that's where storms start to thrive a little bit. So here's a look now on satellite within tropical storm and tropical storm Rose. And like I said earlier in the looking at the moisture and the overall precipitated water, it's not looking too shabby at all. I mean, the low pressure is basically in the middle of that convection. It's looking a lot better than tropical storm Peter. I mean, you can kind of see as well the overall divergent clockwise cirrus clouds kind of spreading out in the outflow channel right there. This is actually a pretty good outflow channel, not gonna lie. And as well, you can kind of see even a little branching of maybe a developing outflow right here. So this is actually not looking too bad. I mean, it definitely looks like really good considering it's only 40 miles an hour. So, I mean, I wouldn't doubt this is actually 45 just based on its structure. I mean, it looks pretty good. I mean, really good actually. I mean, a lot better. I mean, by far a lot better than tropical storm Peter. I mean, Rose is looking really good. There's the clear outflow channel, at least one outflow channel. Really good cirrus clouds spreading out. So looks like we have a little very, very weak upper level anticyclone ahead of the storm or over the storm. As well, a good amount of convection overall, pretty centered and a lot more symmetrical than obviously than Peter. Here's a look now at tropical storm Rose, and again, like I said, likely to become a overall short-lived storm. Going to weaken to a tropical depression by the middle of the day on Wednesday. So that's within basically 2 days. We're actually less than 2 days, like a day and a half. We're more like a day, just under 2 days basically. So this is not going to be really on our radar for a while or much longer. So there's really not much to talk about this. We're really going to wake into a tropical depression, and then it's going to be post-tropical by Saturday, even maybe even Friday. So there's really not much to talk about here. We're going to continue the weekend. Although it's really, really good, the conditions are just going to be really just rapidly die out. I mean, the conditions are going to really rapidly just fall apart, basically. It's just going to start getting worse and worse and worse and just deteriorating, basically, is the way to say it. So I'm not going to really spend too much time on looking at Rose again. Kind of slowly, ever so slightly weaken. I'm not sure what these models are saying, but it's definitely not going to really strengthen once it becomes post-tropical, because it's going to start going to less and less and less favorable conditions. It's going to get pretty darn close to the Bermuda High. So at that point, it's going to move into a really more dry atmosphere. So one thing we gotta look at as well is Invest 98L, and this one's definitely on my radar. There's the low pressure, seeing some really, really good spin though. You can see decent counterclockwise flow. I mean, it's not looking too shabby whatsoever. I mean, this is actually a great looking invest, and that's why I think it's going to be a pretty big concern within strength, not within land, but I think it's definitely going to become a very strong, or not very strong, but I think it's going to be a strong storm. I mean, I would not doubt if this does become a hurricane, because this looks like a beauty right now. Really good counterclockwise flow. I mean, you're seeing as well some good convection bursting and around all this, around the low pressure itself, all over the place. So it's got good convection. It's got an overall really good moisture bubble that should not get broken by anything. And as well, there's really not much SAL really anywhere close to this. That's going to be more of a threat for Rose. But right now, this thing's looking really good. It's got better condition in the future with warmer and obviously a higher ocean heat content. Upper level wind should not be a problem whatsoever as well. So, I mean, this storm could definitely become an issue. I'm not saying an issue for land, but I'm saying like an issue, like maybe like a really strong storm, but most likely going to be out to sea. Because the stronger the storm's going to get, the better chance the ridge will steer this further northwestward instead of west-northwestward. And like I said, likely to be an out to sea storm, so it's going to kind of just go west-northwestward and then going to go kind of northwestward. So it should not be a big threat for the Caribbean, but still pretty far out. So we'll obviously see kind of maybe downward shift and northern shift. But that's kind of the idea what we have so far. So here's the overlook of the intensity guidance. And actually, again, like we typically see within the NDR storms, models love going full out on the very early advisories. But I think this is pretty reasonable. I mean, a few getting this to a high-end Category 1, some getting it to a low-end Category 2. And I wouldn't say that's out of the possibility. I mean, this has really great conditions, and it's definitely a possibility. And it's most likely to really strengthen quite quickly as well. Like, kind of maybe like a layer, maybe it forms extremely early within the MDR. This could very well form into a tropical storm as early as the next 36 hours. So like I said, most likely to become a tropical depression within the next maybe 18 hours or so. I think the probability for the 48 hours will rapidly increase within now to tomorrow morning. Right now it's at 30%. I wouldn't doubt we wake up to maybe a 50 to 60% for the next 48 hours for formation. And I'm going to be excited whether I'm right or wrong, because I have a good amount of confidence within that statement based on what it looks like now. I don't think we actually have ASCAT dead on that or a full pass on ASCAT. So I'll see if we have an ASCAT pass by tomorrow to show you guys that. But again, this is definitely a possibility. This could very well become Tropical Storm Sam. I'm very confident this will become Sam, and even a chance maybe for a hurricane. Already a few members are getting the sub 990, and a few getting the sub 980 millibars. And with the overall mean, it's getting this to as low as 995. So I'm going to keep a very, very close eye on this. Oh, also before one thing I actually go into the next slide is that you can kind of notice kind of the weaker it is, the kind of more west-northwest than it goes. Like I said, kind of the stronger it gets, the faster and sooner the northwest turn will occur, and rather the weaker it gets, kind of the more the trade wind will affect it and steer. And obviously we have easterly, so that's going to kind of steer it that way. So again, the weaker it will be, the bigger the threat it will be for the overall land-wise. But the stronger it gets, obviously, the less we have a threat for any land. So let's now look at the GFS 12Z model run. So here's the overall look again at Rose. Not going to become a threat anyways. There's a tropical wave right there. The open wave, that is obviously going to be Tropical Storm Peter. And there we have an overall trough kind of set up in the center like that. Basically, there is a tropical wave associated with an Invest 98L. So if you go to the next maybe 36 hours, you kind of see all these you see Peter dies, Rose dies, basically. And this is going to be the rise of now Invest 98L, 1,004 millibars within the next 24 hours. Not 24 hours, sorry, that's September 24th. By the next 90 hours. And then within the next additional 24 hours, which would be September 25th, that's going to be 996 millibars. So it's going to really start strengthening quite quickly. And that's why I'm definitely saying this has a really great condition. It could very well become a hurricane. Then 994 millibars, then weakened a little bit. Then it really weakened a little bit. And then it starts to strengthen again. 989 millibars. 988, 974, 968, 966, 960, 960. Okay, then it starts weakening again. So, I mean, this is definitely, I wouldn't say this is possible, but like I said, I think this 994 part is definitely pretty reasonable. That's why it's not going to head anywhere close to the Caribbean, or at least the Lesser Antilles part, but definitely the shift is cutting it very close to the United States and the Bahamas. Again, I'll get a little bit more into that with the steering with the next few minutes. Let's see what the CMC has to say. This is a look at the 12Z as well. So let's wait for that to load. So let's go to the next maybe 24 hours or so. There we have Larry. Not Larry. Sorry. There we have Rose, and there we have Peter. 1,009 millibars each, and there is the remnant of Odette. Again, 1,006 millibars. I doubt this forms. I really doubt it. I think they're just going to highlight it because it's got subtropical characteristics, but I just doubt it's going to expect it to have subtropical characteristics, but I really doubt it's going to form. I mean, again, I was kind of wrong about Peter forming, or so not Peter, I was kind of a little wrong about Rose forming, so who knows, that could very well form. And there we have now the good guy right there, 98L, and then now popping up, so that's going to be very interesting what the CMC has, because I have no idea what the CMC has, because I have not checked the CMC lately. So 1,000 millibars are ready right out the bat. Then I see 998 millibars by September 26th. Then 992, 998. Okay, looks like the CMC is starting to agree with the GFS here. And then it gets to 992 millibars. And it's very weird how the CMC all of a sudden starts to kind of go westward a little bit. Look at that. I mean, that could definitely be a concern, because it kind of just go like basically after this, I kind of just due west. So we're going to really monitor the Bahamas. I wouldn't say to worry about the Lesser Antilles or Puerto Rico, especially if it's going to get this strength. It's going to definitely miss you guys. But the thing is, will it, obviously, with the ridge being so far east, obviously, is there a chance this actually does get steered within the west northwestward instead of going directly northwest? Because obviously it gets really strong, so then it go northwest. But if it gets strong, but since its high pressure is so far east, and as it goes further westward, away from the high pressure, it's going to have a lot less of a northwest poling like that, and a little bit more of a stronger west-northwestward poling. So it's going to be very interesting however that plays out. And then last but not least, check the icon model and see what they have. I've actually not checked the icon in days. Let's see what the icon has actually. So we're going to wait for that to load. This is obviously good as far as September 25th. So we're going to see how that goes, if it actually loads for us. This is actually, there we go. So September 25th. So the CMC is at, or the icon, sorry, yeah, we're looking at the icon here. They actually, so a ton of low pressure. Look at that. We have 4 low pressures there. Remnant to Odette. There's Rose. There is Peter, and there's 98L. Look at that. That's very interesting. So the icon actually wants to have, like I said, some models are having Peter re-strengthening 1,004 millibars later on after it weakens to 1,010 millibars and kind of just falls off the map. But they're at 1,005 millibars within Invest 98L. And like I've mentioned, the icon likes being pretty conservative. And let's now look at the overall steering pattern on the GFS. So we're not going to really look at the steering pattern for either Peter or I guess we can look at the steering pattern for Peter, because I think I said we were going to look at the steering pattern for Peter. But there's an overall trough right here. There's a really weak trough right there, and then it's going to go to a ridge. I believe there is, that's where Peter is. As we go later on, you're going to be seeing an overall kind of trough to the south, kind of forming a little bit, and it's going to keep it basically from going that way. But as we go later on, I think we're looking at the really wrong day. There we go. We're completely looking at the wrong day. There we go. That makes sense. So there we go. This is the right. I was about to say that does not make sense. Okay, here it is. There's a trough right here, kind of from the south, Basically, there's a trough, and here is the ridge. So the ridge right there. So we're seeing the really strong upper level winds right here, and there is basically Peter's right here. If we look at low pressure, yeah, there it is, basically right there. And this is about the next 18 hours, and then that's the 18 hours, and then it just gets pulled northward because of the steering winds as that ridge to the north axis. It's gonna bring in those weaker winds, but those weaker northerly upper winds now it's kind of just scooping it up, and it's kind of just scoop it up like that. Basically, that's exactly what's gonna happen. Thanks to the trough steering it basically that way as well. So with both of the trough and the ridge, it's not going to become a threat towards the United States or the Bahamas. Let's now look at the steering pattern here for 98L. So it's going to have a really good upper level anti-cyclone. Look at that, really strong outflow channels. Has actually a few, has two outflow channels, but really good upper level anti-cyclone already early on with them. 98L. That's going to be a big factor to limiting any upper level wind threats. So it's going to help this really strengthen a lot in the MDR. And that's going to really weak trade with all its life within the MDR. But as it now goes within the Caribbean, the Northern Caribbean, you can see since there is basically no steering winds, this seems to continue going basically westward as long as it wants. You see a really strong trough setting up to the west, and that's going to kind of help keeping anywhere from going like that basically. So that's why it's going to go like that. And it's basically kind of just go like that because there's really no really ridge really steering this really much necessarily until we go later on, and there we have a developing ridge like that. And as the storm pushes the ridge further northward and northward and northward, it's going to have a likelihood to keep just going west northwestward, and then at some point they're going to be seeing a really strong trough. I mean, this trough we're not here. I mean, let's just say the United States get hammered by this storm, but with this really strong negative tilted trough like that, or actually that's not the way it goes, the negative tilted trough like that, that's going to really keep the storm out. So thankfully with this dip in the jet stream, this is not going to hit the United States. But if this were not here, we'd be talking about like a Florence 2.0.